The village of Tapajos, hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest, was a place of untouched beauty and ancient mysteries. Maria, a young woman of 24, known for her indomitable spirit and unwavering courage, always felt a deep connection with the jungle that surrounded her. Raised by her grandparents after her parents' death, she learned from an early age the secrets of the forest and the importance of protecting it. In recent months, the tranquility of Tapajos was threatened. Illegal hunters, led by the ruthless Roberto, began invading the forest, hunting rare animals and devastating the environment. To make matters worse, greedy scientists, led by the ambitious Dr. Felipe Costa, arrived in the region with promises of progress but intentions to exploit natural resources without considering the consequences. Maria watched helplessly as her village and the forest were gradually destroyed. The village elders, including her grandfather, tried to negotiate with the invaders, but their words fell on deaf ears. Desperate and with no options, Maria remembered an old legend her grandmother used to tell her when she was a child. The legend of the jungle's protective spirit, an ancient and dangerous power that could be invoked in times of great need. On a moonless night, Maria decided to act. She knew the risks, but her love for the village and the forest was greater than her fear. She walked to a secret clearing, a sacred place where the elders had performed rituals for centuries. The moon hidden by clouds gave the night a deep darkness, reflecting the uncertainty of her mission. With the words of the legend echoing in her mind, Maria began the ritual. She lit candles around the clearing and drew ancient symbols on the ground with sacred leaves and flowers. In a low and trembling voice, she recited the invocation, calling upon the jungle spirit to help her protect her people. Ancient spirit, guardian of the forest, hear the call of a daughter of the earth. Protect us from those who bring destruction. Grant me the power to defend our nation. The forest seemed to hold its breath as Maria spoke. Suddenly, a strong wind blew through the trees, extinguishing the candles and sending a wave of energy through the air. Maria felt a powerful force enveloping her body, penetrating her skin, her bones, her spirit. She screamed, not from pain, but from surprise and fear of the unknown. Slowly, Maria felt her body change. Her limbs began to elongate and contort. Her skin became scaly and cold. Her senses sharpened in a frightening way, allowing her to feel every vibration of the ground, every movement in the forest. Within minutes, Maria had completely transformed into a giant anaconda. Frightened and confused, Maria hid in the depths of the forest. She tried to scream, but only a hiss escaped her mouth. The terror of her new form mixed with a strange sense of power. She could feel the strength of the jungle within her, pulsing through every muscle, every scale. Gradually, clarity returned to her mind. Maria knew she had to control this new body, understand its abilities. As dawn broke, she silently slid through the forest, practicing her movements, watching the hunters from afar. Now she was one with the jungle, a guardian with the strength and cunning of an anaconda, determined to protect her people and her land at any cost. But Maria's journey was just beginning. As she adapted to her new form, she knew the battle for the forest would be long and fraught with dangers. The jungle spirit had answered her call, and now she was its champion. Determined and with a new purpose, Maria prepared to face the invaders, ready to fight for the future of Tapajos and the Amazon. Discovery and despair. The full moon shone intensely in the Amazonian sky, casting a silvery glow over the dense forest. Maria, now transformed into a gigantic anaconda, slithered silently among the trees, trying to understand her new body and abilities. Every movement was strange and disconcerting, but she began to realize she possessed uncommon strength and agility. Meanwhile, in the village, panic was beginning to spread. Maria's absence was felt by everyone, especially her family. Her younger brother, Pedro, cried every night, while her parents, João and Ana, led relentless searches, venturing into the jungle hoping to find any sign of their daughter. Lucas, a young American biologist who had recently arrived in the village to study the local biodiversity, was deeply moved by the anguish of Maria's family. He had heard about the disappearance and, driven by his idealistic spirit and desire to help, offered to join the searches. Lucas was known for his insatiable curiosity and passion for nature. Since childhood, he had dreamed of exploring the Amazon and uncovering its secrets. With his research equipment and a heart full of determination, he set out with the search team the next morning. The forest was alive with sounds and subtle movements. Colorful birds flew from tree to tree, while small mammals hid in the shadows. Despite being focused on the search for Maria, Lucas couldn't help but marvel at the richness of life around him. But he knew time was against them. Every moment without news of Maria increased the concern. After hours of walking, Lucas noticed something peculiar: huge tracks that seemed to belong to a giant anaconda. He crouched down to examine them more closely, intrigued by the possibility of finding such a rare creature. The tracks were fresh, suggesting the anaconda was nearby. As Lucas followed the tracks, Maria, in her anaconda form, began to notice something extraordinary. In her new form, she could sense the thoughts and emotions of the animals around her. It was as if a new sensory door had been opened. She felt the fear of the small rodents, the curiosity of the monkeys, and the serenity of the birds. This ability fascinated her and, at the same time, filled her with hope. Perhaps, in some way, she could use this new communication to protect her village and her family. But first, she needed to learn to control her new body and understand its limitations. While Maria explored her new abilities, Lucas was getting closer and closer. He finally spotted the huge anaconda coiled near a river. His heart raced with the excitement of the discovery, but also with the fear for Maria's safety in case the anaconda was hostile. He approached slowly, keeping a safe distance, observing every movement of the snake. Then he noticed something unusual. The anaconda's eyes seemed to express human emotions. Lucas hesitated, questioning if the exhaustion from the search was affecting his perception. Maria, upon sensing Lucas's presence, tried to communicate. Concentrating intensely, she sent thoughts of calm and non-aggression. Lucas, still incredulous, began to feel a strange sense of peace. He slowly retreated, determined to return to the village and inform the others of his discovery. Back in the village, Lucas reported the encounter with the anaconda to the villagers and Maria's family. They listened attentively but were skeptical and worried. However, the village leader, the wise and elderly Tupi, suggested that perhaps the anaconda could be a sign from the forest spirits. With renewed determination, Lucas and the villagers planned their next actions, while Maria continued to explore her new powers in the jungle, determined to protect her people and find a way to return to her human form. And so, with the fates of Maria and Lucas intertwined in ways they could not yet fully comprehend, the Amazon jungle kept its secrets well guarded, waiting for the right moment to reveal them. The encounter. The Amazon rainforest was wrapped in an almost supernatural quiet as Lucas carefully advanced among the trees. The dense canopy blocked most of the sunlight, creating an eternal twilight below. The sounds of the jungle, the distant songs of exotic birds, the buzzing of insects, and the rustling of leaves, were his only companions. He had been in the forest for weeks, searching for Maria and studying the region's flora and fauna. He carried a notebook full of notes and a rudimentary map marked with places where he had spotted signs of a large anaconda. During his walks, he had heard stories of an unusual serpent that seemed always present around the village. This anaconda had become an almost mythological figure among the locals, with reports of encounters ranging from inspiring to terrifying. On that particular afternoon, Lucas felt a presence. The jungle seemed to be watching him, as if it were a living, breathing, pulsating entity. He stopped, holding his breath, and looked around. Then he saw it, the enormous, majestic anaconda, partially coiled around a tree, its eyes fixed on him. Lucas froze. Terror coursed down his spine, but something in those eyes seemed strange, even familiar. He realized the serpent was not showing signs of aggression. With its eyes fixed on him, the anaconda seemed to be trying to communicate. "Maria," he murmured, feeling ridiculous but unable to ignore the intuition growing in his chest. The anaconda moved slightly, as if responding. Its eyes fixed on his seemed to implore for understanding. Lucas swallowed hard and hesitantly took a step forward. He had never dealt with anything like this before, but his experience as a biologist made him trust his instinct and observation. "If you are Maria, try to show me something. Anything," he requested, his voice trembling. To his surprise, the anaconda began drawing patterns on the ground with its tail. Lucas watched closely and saw that it was drawing the outline of a flower, the same rare flower that he knew Maria had been researching before she disappeared. The connection between the anaconda and Maria became undeniable. Lucas fell to his knees, shock and understanding mixing in his mind. "Maria, how did this happen? How did you become this?" Maria, still in her anaconda form, moved closer. She pressed her head against Lucas's hand, a gesture seeking solace. Lucas felt a flow of thoughts in his mind, not words, but emotions and images. The invocation of the spirit, the ritual, the desperation to protect the village. "My God," Lucas whispered, "you did this to save the village." Maria confirmed with a gentle motion. Lucas took a deep breath, determination growing inside him. "I don't know how, but I'll help you reverse this. I promise." That night, Lucas set up camp near the anaconda, refusing to leave her alone. He would spend the following days studying ancient texts and seeking more information from the village elders. Meanwhile, Maria, even in her anaconda form, continued to guide and protect him as best she could. Lucas knew he was embarking on a dangerous and uncertain journey, but he was determined. He would not only find a way to bring Maria back, but also protect the forest and the secrets it held. Together, they would form a unique alliance, challenging the dangers ahead and facing the unknown, driven by a bond that transcended physical forms. The threat of the hunters. The forest was in a constant state of alert. The hunters, led by the ruthless Roberto, grew bolder each day. They believed that capturing the great anaconda would bring them fortune and fame, and they were willing to do anything to achieve this goal. The pressure on the forest was mounting, and their presence was a constant threat to all the beings that lived there. Lucas and Maria, now an unlikely alliance, worked tirelessly to protect the forest and its inhabitants. Maria, in her anaconda form, had abilities that made her a formidable adversary. She could move silently among the trees, detect the hunter's scent from miles away, and use her strength to create natural traps. Lucas, in turn, used his intelligence and scientific knowledge to help Maria devise effective strategies. One night, under the dim light of the moon filtered through the tree canopies, Lucas and Maria met at a hidden spot in the forest to discuss their next move. Maria, coiled in a calm spiral, watched attentively as Lucas drew a rudimentary map on the ground using a stick. "They are getting closer to the heart of the forest," Lucas said, pointing to the marks representing the hunters' recent movements. "We need to create a distraction big enough to lead them away from our main trails." Maria nodded, her eyes shining with determination. Using her newly discovered ability to communicate telepathically, she conveyed an idea to Lucas. "Let's use the forest to our advantage. The tree roots can be powerful weapons. We can create traps to slow them down." In the following days, Lucas and Maria worked tirelessly. They put into action a series of ingenious traps. Using strong vines, they created loops that closed at the slightest touch. Fallen branches were strategically placed to block trails and divert the hunters in the wrong direction. Muddy puddles were transformed into dangerous traps, disguised by a thin layer of leaves. Meanwhile, Lucas spent his nights in his small improvised laboratory in the village, surrounded by books and jars of herbs. He studied incessantly, searching for a cure for Maria's curse. Each plant he analyzed seemed to bring new hope, but also new challenges. He knew that time was running out. On an especially tense afternoon, Maria sensed that the hunters were closer than ever. Roberto, with his greed and arrogance, led the group with unsettling confidence. Maria, moving silently through the shadows, found an ancient tree whose roots extended in all directions. She used her strength to move the roots, creating a path that would lead the hunters directly into a trap. Lucas, watching from a nearby hideout, was impressed by Maria's skill. He knew they needed more time. In a last-ditch effort, he decided to confront Roberto directly, hoping to divert the hunter's leader's attention. Using all his knowledge of the forest, Lucas positioned himself in a clearing known to be dangerous animal territory. "Roberto," Lucas shouted, his voice echoing through the forest. "If you want the anaconda, you'll have to get past me first." Roberto, surprised by Lucas's audacity, ordered his men to approach cautiously. Lucas knew he was risking everything, but it was a risk he was willing to take. Meanwhile, Maria moved quickly, preparing the final trap. When the hunters reached the clearing, Lucas waved his hand, signaling to Maria. In a swift movement, the tree roots rose, creating an impenetrable barrier. The hunters, caught by surprise, tried to retreat, but it was too late. Maria, with her impressive strength, closed the trap, leaving Roberto and his men immobilized. Lucas, breathing heavily, approached Roberto. "This forest is not yours to exploit or destroy," he said firmly. "Go back to where you came from, and maybe there will still be a chance for you." Roberto, furious but defeated, had no choice but to retreat. The hunters, demoralized, followed their leader, leaving the forest in peace, at least for now. With the threat temporarily averted, Lucas turned his attention to finding a cure for Maria. He knew that the real battle was yet to come, but for now, he and Maria had managed to protect the forest and its inhabitants once again. The ritual of the spirits. Lucas was sitting in the small cabin he had set up at the edge of the forest, surrounded by piles of ancient books, manuscripts, and scribbled notes. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over the yellowed pages. He had finally found a clue, a ritual described in an old book of indigenous legends that seemed to promise the reversal of Maria's transformation. The ritual, however, was complex and required a series of rare ingredients found only in the depths of the Amazon. Lucas knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed Maria and the animals of the forest to help him. With renewed determination, he headed to the place where Maria usually hid. Maria, in her anaconda form, silently slithered through the terrain when she sensed Lucas's presence. Her yellow eyes, still glowing with human intelligence, fixed on him as he explained the ritual. "Maria, I found a way," said Lucas, his voice laden with hope. "But we need several ingredients, and some of them are very hard to find." Maria looked at him, a mix of hope and fear in her eyes. With a gentle nod of her head, she signaled that she was ready to begin the search. Moonflower. The first task was to find the rare moonflower, which bloomed only at night in remote areas of the forest. Maria guided Lucas through secret paths to a clearing illuminated by the moonlight. There, surrounded by an almost magical aura, they found the flower. But protecting the plant from nocturnal predators was a battle in itself. Jaguar claw. The second ingredient was the jaguar claw, a symbolic and dangerous item to obtain. Maria, using her telepathic communication with the animals, convinced an old jaguar to give them a claw. In return, Lucas promised to help protect the jaguar's territory from hunters. Brazil wood resin. The Brazil wood resin, known for its healing and mystical properties, was next on the list. Maria and Lucas faced the challenges of the dense jungle to find the specific tree. During the collection of the resin, they were attacked by a colony of poisonous ants, and Lucas nearly lost his life. Thanks to Maria's abilities, he was saved. Harpy feathers. The feathers of a harpy, the powerful bird of prey, were needed for the purification of the ritual. Maria communicated with a harpy that guided them to its nest. Lucas had to climb a huge tree, facing his own fear of heights, to collect the feathers without disturbing the bird. With all the ingredients in hand, Lucas and Maria returned to the village. There, the tribe's shaman helped prepare the ritual site, an ancient stone circle in the heart of the forest. The full moon illuminated the scene, creating a mystical and energy-charged atmosphere. While the shaman chanted ancient songs, Lucas mixed the ingredients in a ceremonial bowl. Maria, in her anaconda form, coiled around the circle, her eyes shining with determination. When everything was ready, Lucas realized there was one last element needed, a blood sacrifice. With a precise cut, he offered a drop of his own blood to the circle, sealing the pact between the human and spiritual worlds. The ground began to tremble slightly as the ritual reached its climax. Lights danced around the circle, and a supernatural wind blew through the forest. Maria, feeling a powerful force within her, began to transform. Her anaconda form slowly started to dissolve, revealing the human figure beneath. With a final flash of light, Maria fell to the ground, now back in her human form. Lucas ran to her, their eyes meeting in a mix of relief and joy. "We did it," he whispered, helping her to her feet. Maria, still a bit disoriented, looked at Lucas with gratitude and something deeper, a connection that transcended words. As the village celebrated Maria's return, she and Lucas knew the real challenge was just beginning. They had managed to reverse the transformation, but the jungle still needed protection from those who threatened it. And together, with the strength of their love and the wisdom they had gained, they were ready to face whatever came next. The final battle. The forest was quiet, an unsettling silence hanging in the air as night fell. Lucas crouched near a dead campfire, his eyes focused on an ancient scroll containing the ritual needed to reverse Maria's transformation. The full moon shone in the sky, illuminating the clearing where they were hiding. Maria, in her anaconda form, was coiled beside him, her eyes watching the darkness of the surrounding jungle intently. "We have all the ingredients, Maria," Lucas whispered, gently touching her scales. "Tomorrow night, we'll perform the ritual. You'll be free." Maria nodded slightly, understanding the gravity of the moment. But before they could relax, a distant noise caught both their attention. Stealthy footsteps approached, and Lucas's heart raced. The hunters had found their hideout. Roberto, the leader of the hunters, advanced slowly through the forest, his armed men following closely. He knew capturing the giant anaconda would bring wealth and prestige, and he was determined not to let this opportunity slip away. "Spread out and surround the clearing," Roberto ordered, his voice low but authoritative. "We're taking that damn snake tonight." Maria raised her head, her keen senses detecting the movements around them. She looked at Lucas, and he understood immediately. They needed to act fast. "Get ready, Maria," he said, grabbing his knife and positioning himself beside her. "They're coming." The hunters approached silently, but Maria was ready. With a swift movement, she slid across the clearing, disappearing into the dense vegetation. Lucas followed closely, using his knowledge of the forest to move undetected. Suddenly, the sound of breaking branches and rustling leaves echoed through the forest. Maria launched a surprise attack, disarming two of the hunters with a single powerful swipe of her tail. The men fell to the ground, unconscious, as Maria moved with impressive agility. Roberto shouted orders to his men, but the jungle seemed alive against them. Animals emerged from the shadows, drawn by Maria's call. Ocelots, monkeys, and exotic birds joined the battle, confusing and distracting the hunters. Using the darkness to his advantage, Lucas attacked the hunters one by one, disarming and incapacitating them with quick, precise blows. But Roberto was not easily defeated. He saw Maria emerge from the shadows and raised his weapon, determined to take her down. "Now you're mine, damn snake," Roberto shouted, aiming carefully. Maria, sensing the danger, lunged towards Lucas to protect him. With a swift movement, she used her tail to knock Roberto down, but he fired his weapon. The shot echoed through the forest, hitting Lucas in the shoulder and sending him to the ground with a cry of pain. "Lucas!" Maria cried telepathically, feeling a wave of despair. She wrapped Roberto with her powerful body, immobilizing him as she looked at Lucas, who lay bleeding on the ground. Even in her anaconda form, Maria knew she needed to save the man who had risked everything to help her. She squeezed Roberto until he passed out, then quickly slithered to Lucas. She coiled her body around him, trying to warm him and press the wound to stop the bleeding. "I'll protect you, Lucas. I promise," Maria thought, hoping he could hear her. The few remaining hunters, seeing their leader defeated and the jungle's strength turning against them, fled in terror. Maria remained vigilant, her eyes never leaving Lucas's face. She could feel his life slipping away and knew he needed help. Using the last of her strength, Maria called telepathically for help. The animals responded, and a group of monkeys soon appeared, bringing leaves and medicinal herbs that could help stop the bleeding and treat Lucas's wound. As the night wore on, Maria stayed by Lucas's side, caring for and protecting him. The love and determination she felt for him kept her strong. She knew the battle was far from over, but with Lucas by her side, she was ready to face anything. The forest, a silent witness to the battle and the unlikely union between a woman transformed into an anaconda and an idealistic biologist, seemed to whisper a promise of hope and renewal. Their journey was far from over, but together, they could face any challenge the jungle threw at them. The sacrifice. The night was dark, shrouded in a dense fog that snaked between the trees of the Amazon rainforest. Lucas and Maria, still in their anaconda form, were gathered in a secret clearing, illuminated only by the soft light of the stars and the moon. Around them, the magical ingredients needed for the ritual were carefully arranged in a circle, each one obtained with effort and danger. With his heart racing, Lucas consulted the ancient scroll that detailed the ritual one more time. He lit the candles arranged around the circle and began to chant the sacred words in a low and reverent murmur. Maria, motionless and observant, felt the jungle's magical energy start to stir in response. The animals of the forest, silent spectators, formed a circle around the clearing as if they knew the importance of the moment. Colorful parrots, majestic jaguars, and small bright frogs seemed to guard the clearing, protecting the ritual from any interruption. As Lucas progressed with the incantation, a mysterious wind began to blow, rustling the leaves and creating a sound that resembled an ancestral whisper. The atmosphere was charged with expectation and tension. Finally, Lucas reached the last part of the ritual, the part he had dreaded, the sacrifice. Maria, the scroll. It says that a sacrifice is needed to complete the ritual. Someone needs to offer their life, Lucas said, his voice trembling. His eyes met Maria's, shining with sadness and determination. Maria, using her newly discovered telepathic ability, responded with a sense of resignation and acceptance. If this is what needs to be done to protect our village and the forest, then so be it. Before Lucas could protest, a shadow emerged from the trees. It was Roberto, the leader of the hunters, with a resolute look on his face. "I heard everything," he said, his voice hoarse and determined. "This forest, this jungle, has taught me something. I need to correct my mistakes." Lucas and Maria were surprised by Roberto's unexpected presence. "You are willing to sacrifice yourself?" Lucas asked, incredulous. "Yes," Roberto replied firmly. "I brought destruction to this place. If my death can bring redemption and restore peace, then so be it." Roberto stepped into the magical circle and looked at Maria, who now understood the depth of his decision. "Do what needs to be done," he told Lucas. With tears in his eyes, Lucas completed the final incantation. An intense and ethereal light enveloped Roberto, illuminating the clearing with an almost celestial glow. The spirit of the jungle, a majestic and ancient entity, emerged from the shadows, accepting Roberto's sacrifice. Its eyes shone with millennial wisdom as it approached Maria. "Your sacrifice will be remembered," the spirit whispered, its voice echoing like the wind through the trees. With a gentle gesture, it touched Maria with its light, and the transformation began. Maria felt her body change, the scales on her skin dissipating, her human form returning. The pain and confusion were replaced by a sense of peace and clarity. When the light finally disappeared, Maria was back in her human form, kneeling in the center of the circle, with tears streaming down her face. Roberto, now just a memory, had disappeared, taken by the forest to become part of its eternal cycle of life and death. The spirit of the jungle gave one last look at Lucas and Maria before vanishing into the darkness. Lucas ran to Maria, wrapping her in a tight embrace. "You did it," he whispered, full of emotion. "No, we did it," Maria corrected, looking around at the forest that now seemed even more alive and vibrant. "And he helped us understand the true meaning of sacrifice and redemption." With the village safe and Maria back in her human form, they knew there was still much to be done to protect the forest and its inhabitants. But with the spirit of the jungle by their side and Roberto's sacrifice in their minds, They were ready to face any challenge that might arise. The new guardian. Maria slowly opened her eyes, feeling the soft light of dawn filtering through the forest leaves. The sensation of being back in her human body was both strange and familiar. She touched the damp soil around her, feeling the earth's energy vibrating beneath her fingers. The forest seemed more alive than ever, as if it were whispering secrets and promises in her ears. Lucas was beside her, watching her with a relieved and emotional smile. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, helping her to stand. "Yes, I am," Maria replied, feeling the forest's strength coursing through her veins. "But I feel that something has changed inside me. The jungle gave me a gift, and now it's up to me to protect it." The villagers, who had gathered after the final battle, surrounded Maria and Lucas. There were looks of admiration and respect, mixed with gratitude. Maria explained what had happened, how the spirit of the jungle had honored Roberto's sacrifice and allowed her transformation back into a human. She shared her new mission to protect the forest, and the villagers agreed to help her. Maria became a guardian of the jungle, using the knowledge acquired during her transformation. She could communicate with animals and understand the forest signs in a way no one else could. With Lucas by her side, she began working on conservation and education initiatives, teaching the village's youth and visitors about the importance of biodiversity and ecosystem protection. Lucas, deeply connected to the forest and the community, found his own calling alongside Maria. Together, they developed research programs that not only respected but also valued indigenous knowledge about the forest. They collaborated with scientists and environmentalists worldwide, creating a network of support and awareness for the preservation of the Amazon. As they worked together, the love between Maria and Lucas blossomed. It was a love based on mutual respect, admiration, and a shared passion for protecting the forest. They found strength in each other, facing the challenges that arose with unwavering determination. Their nights were filled with conversations about the future, and their days were dedicated to making that future a reality. The village, once threatened, became a symbol of resistance and harmony with nature. Under Maria and Lucas's leadership, new generations grew up with a deep respect for the forest and an understanding of its global importance. They inspired others to follow the same path, creating a growing network of Amazonian guardians. On a starry night, as Maria and Lucas walked hand in hand through the forest, she looked at him and smiled. "The jungle has united us in ways we could never have imagined," she said. Lucas gently squeezed her hand. "And we will continue to be united, protecting this magical place," he replied, looking out at the vast expanse of the forest around them. Maria felt a wave of gratitude and purpose. She knew that as long as they continued to fight together, the forest would be safe. They were more than just protectors. They were part of the jungle itself, forever connected by the journey they had shared. And with that connection, they knew they could face any challenge that lay on the horizon.